Welcome to another edition of the Writer's Game podcast, where we help you magnify your voice and monetize your message. Look, if this is your first episode, we have somebody on here absolutely amazing today. Dr. Smallwood, she is a rock star, a clinical doctor. Like, she doesn't just have doctor in front of her name. She's somebody that actually done the work, went through the educational process, and now she's helping women overcome and fight fear. Dr. Smallwood, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am absolutely amazing. So before we get into the weeds, I know we were having a conversation offline, but can you just introduce yourself and how are you using your story to change lives?
Okay. My name is Dr. Chandra Smallwood. I'm a clinical pharmacist, mother, author, and anxiety coach. I has spent a long time managing anxiety, dealing with like slight bits of depression through college, through graduate school, and when I had my baby. And it's really important to me that I can use that to help women, men, women, anyone possible, but
Definitely.
mostly women, obviously, because I'm a woman, get through a lot of hard times because it's really difficult out here. Lots happening after the pandemic, the recession, just trying to be an entrepreneur, and everyone just trying to do the best we can in life, especially at this age. I think we deal with a lot of things that hold us down.
Of course, of course. And before we get really too deep into anxiety and the causes and just the things that you've been through, you introduce yourself with a lot of different titles. Out of all of the titles, which one are you most proud of? Which one makes you the most happy to say?
Mom, of course, right? I
So
have a 2-year-old daughter who was born during the pandemic. I call her pandemic baby. People are like, no, she's not, because pandemic baby means that you actually conceived her during the pandemic
of
instead of
course,
giving birth to her.
of
But
course.
still,
No, I love it. I love it. What is one of the things that, and I always ask parents this, what is the one of the things that if you could leave her one message, one lesson, what would you leave her?
I named her Ocean Storm.
Mm,
I want her to use, like, when kids at this time, like she's 2, turning 3, they know exactly what they want. They fight for it. They don't give up. It's like their number one focus. I would say just keep that fire and be that wild force of nature that I named you to be.
of course, of course. Now, how are you that? How are you operating and being that fire and being that wild force of nature in your life and your career? And how has that helped you get to everywhere you are today?
Well, I would say, like, okay, a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago, I remember being in Atlanta. I had just flown out there to like just hang out with one of my girlfriends.
Mhm.
And she's like, you should, put things on Instagram, and you should put yourself out there and help people. And I was like, I could never do that. Like,
Yes,
are you kidding me? And now I'm up here like making videos every day, like really focusing on the purpose. Because at the end of the day, I'm here to help people. It's just like an oath through pharmacy school. Like, you're here to help, you're here to provide healing and things like that. And, I it's like, let me get over myself
mm,
to help others, to help women.
of course.
So that's what I'm here to do. And I'm trying, to just open myself up and be, as transparent as possible with my story.
Why is it, do you believe, just kind of in your opinion, why is it so challenging for people to show up and be transparent and vulnerable in their stories?
Well, I think sometimes it's a lack of self-acceptance.
Mm,
I feel like at the time, it's a lot of what do other people feel about me? Like, this may sound crazy, but one of the reasons why I didn't want to be open before is because of a guy. And he was very, like, strong and very, like, out there and successful, and I was like, he's going to look at me like, you're barely doing anything when and he's doing all these things. And one day I was like, what? Like, what am I doing?
mm,
So I think, like, a lot of times people have just a lot of internal factors that hold them back. It's just like self-love, such as, you know, I have a girl I'm talking to today on a podcast, on my podcast, about, you know, natural hair and anxiety. And like a lot of times, you know, that's a big thing, because when I don't have braids in, like I may have an afro, and that's hard to come out, you know, into the world and say, hey, this is me and I'm happy with who I am.
Of course.
um so yeah, I think mostly it's other people, unfortunately.
Yeah. That no, it definitely is unfortunate, and but it's powerful though, because you recognize that I can tell that you've reflected on that, you've done the work, and now you're kind of on the other side, and journeying towards where you want to be. Walk someone through, anybody that's listening, walk them through how they, if they're in that space where they're afraid of, you know, really being transparent and vulnerable in who they are. Walk us through the steps that you went through that could really help somebody else become more confident and stand up and be courageous in who they are as well.
Okay. I think first we really have to turn inward. We have to take a break, turn inward and say, hey, what like what are my triggers? Like what are the, like the small traumas or even huge traumas that I've gone through in my life, and how are they holding me back? Like we cannot totally 100% heal from like the past or bad things that have happened to us, but we can put them into perspective and say, hey, how is, you know, how is this stopping me? um Also, I think when it comes to things like they might sound cliche, but journaling and like affirmations,
Yeah.
like being able to look at yourself in the mirror and say nice things to yourself can show you a lot about who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you've ever just like stared at yourself in the eyes and, you know, like, I'm beautiful, you know, or I'm successful, or I'm worthy.
Mm.
Like that's very hard for sometimes for people to do. And I think that's a start, you know, um, to really pay attention to what we have gone through and really like unfold that story and accept it. Like we have to be in acceptance without judging ourselves. And I think from there, it's just little steps every day, you know, one affirmation, one little journal entry, one trying something new, one, hey, I can write a book. You know, I'm not a writer. Like, I feel like, you know, I'm a scientist. Like,
Of course.
English is like, no,
But
you know, so I'm more math. So I was like, I can't do this. But if I break it down, like like especially how you talked about it, if you break something down like into the small little bits, they can come together to make a whole.
mm, I really love that perspective. And I love what you said about unfolding your story. And if you think about anything in life, I think oftentimes anxiety comes from, we look at something, we I guess fear the outcome or fear the result. There's a quote that I want to read, that really resonates. One of my mentors sent it to me the other day, and it's by Mark Twain, and it says, "I have lived a long life and had many troubles, most of which never happened." So I'm going to read that again. So I have lived a long life and had many troubles, most of which never happened. And I think a lot of times that really spoke to me, because a lot of times we have all of these worries and fears and things, and like we fear the result. But if we really look at it, it's like it hasn't even happened yet. And if you just take one step at a time, just literally one step at a time, whether you're writing a book, whether you're building a business, whether you're entering into a relationship, whether you're having a child, a new baby, all of these different things, if you just take it one step at a time, you'll be fine probably 95% of the time. And in those spaces where things happen, you know, like just in life, you have to have grace for yourself and love yourself through those obstacles and those hurdles, and learn from those different things as you're continuing to unfold or unpack your story as well. What is one of the, I guess, the most powerful lessons that you've learned in this season that you were in, that really has been a guardrail for your life thus far?
I think it's Have you ever feared death?
Oh, yes.
I think at this time, like I'm 41.
Okay.
So when I had Ocean, do you have kids? Do you have children?
Yes, I have a 7-year-old.
Okay, nice. I feel like when you have a child, like all of a sudden you look at your life and you're like adding up the years. Like,
Mm,
you know, am I gonna, see her graduate high school, college, get married? Like, am I gonna be there for those milestones?
that's good.
And I feel like that really put in perspective like a lot of life because it's like, okay, do I have a lot of life left or do I not? People are there's been a lot of talk about heart attacks and
Of
people dying
course.
of cardiac arrest.
Hmm.
Um, and I feel like at this point at this season, I don't want to, you don't want to die with regrets. I don't want to get to a point where I'm like, I didn't do, like, what was I scared of? Just like your quote, like, what I'm not going to do what I want to do because I'm worried about something that probably doesn't even exist.
Of course.
I'm worried about, can I be successful? Can I really help them? Can I really do this? Can I be that person? It's, am I like people start thinking, oh, am I a fraud? Things like that. And it's like, well, at the end of the day, even if I saved one life, like that is
Mm,
still worth so, so, so much.
exactly.
People talk about like the best years, of their life or their purpose, things like that. Like, okay, so I've, been a pharmacist for over 10 years. I worked in a pharmacy and helped lots of people. It's like, was that okay? So was that my purpose? I helped lots of people. Is it done? Am I done? No. As long as I'm living, I can't be done because I took on this role of helping others,
Of
and
course.
I just think now it's just I feel like at this age I'm more into like let me be here for a reason and make a difference than you know let me just focus on myself. Like I think we're like that in our 20s and 30s,
Yeah.
but especially our 20s, we're just like, hey, it's all about me. And
Mhm.
it's just not about me, especially when you become a parent. You just realize you have so much to give others.
I think
Um,
there's a level of responsibility that comes when you have children. I think, when I had my first son, um, I lost him at birth. So it shook me up to the core. And I talk about this all the time. It's kind of like a lot of people, um, you know, they have so much unrealized potential. And there's a quote that everyone has heard, like the most potential and dreams and the best ideas and innovations are laying dormant in the graveyard. And when I lost him at birth, I recognized that life is short. And even in the moments that we had him, like life can be taken, from you that quickly. So I have to be purposeful in all of my actions and be grateful for every single minute that I have in life. Now, that's not saying like I'm working every single second of every single day, but that's saying, taking time to be present, taking time to really, you know, walk outside and just be a part of nature. Be present in conversations that you have with people and stop focusing on so much in the future because it hasn't happened yet. And as much as you do an amazing job and you're very intentional and very focused and purposeful and, you prioritize now, at the end of the day, the only things that we really have control over is right now.
right.
So we have to remain positive and purposeful in all of our actions. When you think about a moment in your life that has really wakened you up to the things that you're trying to do with the rest of your life, what would that moment be?
Um, I was at a wedding years ago. I
Mhm.
don't remember whose wedding it was,
Yeah.
but all I remember is there was a girl at the wedding who was sitting and breathing heavily and crying. And I knew exactly what she was going through at that moment. Like,
Mm.
oh, she's having a panic attack. Oh, I know this. I've been there so many times. And, to know me personally is to know that I'm a very honest, upfront,
Yeah.
say kind of whatever type person. And so I had no problems with approaching her and saying, "Hey, let's talk about this. Let's do some breathing. You got this. It's fine. We got
Of
this."
course.
Um, and realizing that I had that comfort in doing that, and I could help her in that moment, being calm under pressure, and just and caring. Hey, this woman is going through this. I went through this. I don't want her to go through this. This is hurting my heart. Was kind of like a big thing for me, like to say,
Mhm.
hey, this is really what I can do. I can do this, so I feel like I have to.
Of course. Of course. I love that. I love that. When you think about somebody right now is dealing with anxiety, somebody right now is so overwhelmed in the future that it's not allowing them to be present in the now, what would you say to that person?
Um, I would talk to them about being mindful, about how to be mindful when they go through those times. There's lots of different ways to stay in the moment. Um, One is to really focus. Like I tell people, okay, I used to get very anxious when I drove.
Mm, okay.
I think it gets a mix of lots of things. People die in car accidents. We hear about it all the time. I mean, you're kind of claustrophobic. You're just inside.
Mhm.
Traffic might be crazy. But one of the things like I do when I am driving is I focus on nature. Like if I
Just
can see a tree or a flower, like as I'm driving, I will focus on that.
okay.
You know, I'm a big advocate for breath work.
Okay.
So that's all. That's usually like my first thing I tell someone. Do you know how to um, belly breathe? Like, do you know how to box breathe? Like, do you know pranayama and how to do like yogic breathing? Like, to me, that's number one, because we can decrease our sympathetic nervous system and increase our parasympathetic or our rest response by breathing.
So
And
break
we really,
you're speaking medical terms. Break that down. Break that down for somebody who doesn't understand what you mean.
okay, so basically, anxiety is our sympathetic nervous system going crazy. So
Okay.
your sympathetic nervous system is your fight, flight, or freeze, which is always on. Like no matter what, it's our will to survive, our will to for our body to survive never shuts off. So it's just always there in the background. Just like if you heard something right now, you say something went through your window and it broke, like what would you do? You would react right away, right?
Yeah.
Because it's always on. And so what happens is when we have anxiety, like, but you had that window break, so you had that threat, your sympathetic nervous system increases, and then it naturally goes down after you realize, oh, everything's okay.
Okay.
Just, the kid next door hit a baseball or something, you realize. But when you have anxiety, when that threat isn't there, you still feel those feelings. And
Mm,
the sympathetic nervous system does things. It increases your heart rate, increases your breathing. It actually increases your hearing and your eyesight. It makes you kind of like a little bit of a superhuman. So you're able to survive, right?
interesting.
So, and then hormones, epinephrine and adrenaline, things start coming. So you're just all of a sudden the Hulk manifested, to try to save life. But when you're just at home sitting on the couch, when you start feeling that way, you're like, whoa, like what is happening?
Exactly.
So, one of the ways we can help to decrease that is by breathing, by having slow, deep breaths. It actually decreases that reaction and brings on our parasympathetic reaction. Or you could say, like African Americans, we know it as the itis. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you feel tired and relax and like
Yeah.
chill. So, that's that system. So, it can help to bring that on.
No, that's really cool. And I know we haven't touched on this yet, but you have a book. Is your book talking about some of these different things that people can do? Talk to us about your book.
Yes. So my book is a lot about anxiety and a lot about my story. I want people to relate as much as possible,
Of course.
but I mean, I get all the time, like, what is anxiety. Like people feel it, but they don't really know like what's happening. So it's a lot of, let's talk about these parts of anxiety. Let's talk about the main types of anxiety people go through, like, social anxiety or agoraphobia or things like that.
Mhm.
And then I talk about me when I gave birth. I talk about like men I've dated, because relationships have a big, they really affect our lives.
Oh yeah,
Person
yeah.
that you decide to spend years with, even if they're gone, like you still
Of
feel
course.
those ramifications or whatever.
Mhm.
So yeah, I talk about a lot of that, and then I talk about definitely treatments, because one of the ways I really helped myself was to exercise.
Okay.
Because one thing you do when you exercise is usually stay mindful, because you're like, look, I got to get these gains right now.
Yes.
I I have to pick up this weight right now. So you feel it. Like, one technique is when someone is working out, to really focus on what they feel. Like if you're doing jumping jacks, what are you feeling? You're lifting weights. Like what muscle groups do you feel? Even you don't know if they're right or not, but just pay attention. You feel your bicep tightening. Like you feel that stuff.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, talking about the different things that we do as preventative, like eating, sleeping, like all that is very, very important, when it comes to mental health, when it comes to most things, but especially when it comes to anxiety.
Where can someone get your book?
Um, it's on my Instagram page. It's a link.
Okay.
Um, I am right now working on putting it into a funnel. Um,
There you
I feel like one of the things about, like, little parts of anxiety about being a new entrepreneur is all of this like technical stuff, like a funnel.
No, literally. You can definitely talk about all of that offline. Like all this week, I've been like going live talking about the 9 streams of income from one book, the 8 places to sell your books, like all of the systems that an author needs before they launch their book. So I definitely understand like the importance of like funnels and all of these things as a new entrepreneur that you need. But the reality of it is once you have it and once it's done, that's the beautiful thing about the digital world now. It's evergreen, and you do it one time and then you won't have to worry about it anymore. Um, so anybody watching right now, I want you to go check out her book. Go to her Instagram page. It's on the screen right below. Go to her Instagram page, click on the link in her bio, and check out her book. If you're dealing with anxiety, if you're you're feeling overwhelmed, or if you're allowing fears to blind you from what your future wants you to be or where you're going, check out her book and support her. Support me by supporting her as well. All right. So you have something else that I'm really excited for people to really hear about. You have the book, you have the course, you have all of these different resources for someone that is going through this. Talk to me about how you can support anybody listening right now in their journey of overcoming the season that they're in, where they're allowing fear or anxiety to kind of overcome them in a sense.
Yeah, so I have a program. I have a 4-week program and a 6-week program.
Okay.
But the 4-week program is 4 weeks spending with me as an anxiety coach, as a clinical pharmacist. So I
Mhm.
also do those things. If you have any questions about medications or anything whatsoever over the counters, I'm here to also answer those questions. But we talk about the 6 main types of anxiety and how to treat those.
Okay.
We talk about the breathing. I show you multiple techniques, ETF, like it's kind of like acupuncture, but you do it yourself,
Mhm.
like on different parts of your body. We talk about that. We talk about really what affirmations are and how to use them and how important they are to be done daily. Because if they're not done daily, they don't really work.
Of course.
Um, there's also, and so these are a week. It's 2 sessions a week. Every week also has a speaker, usually therapists.
Hmm.
There's also a week on sleep, and we talk about planning schedules and sleep hygiene and so many things that have to deal with that. And then we also talk about food and
Mm.
their anxiety reducing foods, how to eat, not to eat, how to think about food.
Okay.
Um, And we tie, and at the end we tie it all together, and we have a lot, like, so the first day of the week, we go through different techniques to use, and then the second day we recap. um, we just talk. We have a whole session. We talk, or we listen to a speaker and we talk to them about their advice about if there's a sleep specialist or a therapist on family. And then for the 6-week course is more for women, because it has a week on being a woman and having anxiety,
Of
and
course.
then there's one on mothers and anxiety.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this question. And this is one of my final questions. I want you to think through the time where you were going through a lot of these times where you were feeling anxious and anxiety. What were some of the affirmations that you either needed to hear or the affirmations that you told yourself that got you through those times?
um this is so personal. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
Man, no.
Yes. I think a lot of times, man, and I go on podcasts all the time. We don't have the opportunity to get to know people, because it's those times. Everybody listening right now, before you can become a better anything in professional world, you have to become better internally. Just like she said, you have to go inward before you go outward. So she can give you all the strategies on being a pharmacist, or all of the strategies to be a better person in business, and all of these different things, right? And I can teach you how to write a book and launch it, but if you don't have the inside right, then all of the inside not being right is going to affect all of the other things. You know what I mean? So anybody listening right now, I need you to take out your pen, take out your pencil, your phone, and I want you to take notes, because all of this information is empowering you internally, so that can be able to give you the landing board, so that you can then go off and do everything that you want in business or in your professional career as well. All right, so talk to us.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, I mean, affirmations are obviously very, very personal for people. I'll have to say one affirmation that it may not sound like much to anyone, but is for a woman is saying I am beautiful. Like, I had it. Okay, when I grew up, okay, it's like men and women. When you're in like high school, you all of a sudden things start developing, right? Like your body starts
Of
really,
course.
really developing. So in high school, all of a sudden I had this like huge butt. The attention was not something that I wanted, because I was kind of a nerd, very quiet.
Mhm.
But then to like get all this like attention from men made my life, it just was different, and it was difficult, and it
Okay.
wasn't something that I could really be open with my parents about, because even though they've been married and they're still married,
Mhm.
the communication just wasn't there.
It should.
So
Yeah.
as I got older, I can't like being like sexy has never been something that I've been super comfortable with, and mostly because of that time, because it was like I was, to get like people speaking to you like in a sexual manner when you're young, and I wasn't that person at the time.
Of
So
course.
now I really had to like think about this, like, can I feel that I'm beautiful without like someone like just looking strictly like at like a curve on my body.
Of course.
So that was very personal for me, and I know it's just I am beautiful, but like it still was a lot for me. And then um to really believe and say I am like abundant, because I didn't grow up. A lot of us didn't grow up with like a whole bunch of money and things like that.
Mhm.
But you work a lot. When I was in college, like I worked multiple jobs. When I was in pharmacy school, I worked 2 jobs, and it was like no matter how much I worked, you can never like in college you never can afford anything. Like it doesn't matter.
You work like 60 hours, like, hold on, I only got $6. Like, what's happening?
Right. Like, okay, my half my paycheck at $200. Like I have $200 to get me through like the month.
I understand it.
So so once, but when you go, like when you go to graduate school, you go to professional school, like you come out and you're making more money, but
Of
you're
course.
kind of like, and I don't know to do what I'm doing or anything like that really. So I did definitely start out with investing really early and things like that. That was very important to me to save for retirement. But you have to think of back to that, like lack personality like you had, and like you didn't feel abundant and you felt like you had nothing and you were always struggling. Like that
Mm,
takes a while to break,
of course.
unless someone teaches you. So those two were really big for me. um and I feel like if you if you do have affirmations, they should definitely be I am statements. They should always be in the present. Never I want, never I need. They should be short, unless you just have a great memory and you can remember just like long
Yeah,
things.
it's like these.
Yeah, they should always be positive.
Mhm.
Always be about yourself. I do talk a lot about like people making affirmations and things like that. So those were like two for me that were super personal, for those reasons.
No, definitely. And I appreciate you sharing that. And I appreciate your vulnerability and willingness to just be transparent in your story. Anybody listening right now, I need you to understand that these things are important. I need you to go follow Dr. Smallwood. I need you to go follow her. Follow her pages, check out her resources. If you're somebody that's going through a time where your anxiety is feeling a bit overwhelming, practice your breathing. Do those affirmations. But remember, just like she said, take it one step at a time. Unfold your story. Unfold your story one step at a time, and don't focus so much on the future things that have not happened. Focus on the next step in your current moment. Anxiety is real. All of these fears are real. No one's saying that it's not normal to feel all of these feelings. But if you practice your breathing, if you take it one step at a time, and you work with a coach or a guide or someone like Dr. Smallwood that can be your direction on navigating these spaces that you're in, I guarantee that she'll help you use her story to be able to empower yours. Dr. Smallwood, if you had 20 seconds, 20, 30 seconds to just share one more message with the audience, what would you say?
I would say a lot of people are anxious about just being anxious, and they need to know that. Think about that. And also, if you are taking anything like over the counter and other medications, make sure that your pharmacist or your doctor know, because it's really really important. There's a lot of things that are being sold right now, teas and detoxes and all sorts of different things, but mixing them together just may not be good for you.
Hmm.
So I just want to just make sure that that's out there.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Look, you are doing an amazing job. I honor you. I thank you so much for helping women fight their fear, overcome those anxieties, and be able to set themselves on a path to living life more freely. Anybody that's listening right now, definitely check out Dr. Smallwood on all of the different platforms that she's on. Like this podcast if you're watching the recording, and then share it with somebody that you know that may be dealing with something similar to this. Look, this is the Writers Game podcast where we help you monetize your message and magnify your voice. And we'll see you guys next episode.